Hello, friends. Starting with today's episode, for the next few episodes, we are going to talk on relationships. Relationships, as we all know, are essential and inevitable. You cannot stay in a world without having some relationship or the other. There are different kinds of relationships, but relationships are going to be there. Relationships is the way in which two or more individuals, people, companies, countries, and various other entities behave and connect with each other and how they interact with them. And it is very important that you interact and understand the right way of building. I'm going to talk about this, or I'm going to mention this a little later, but relationships don't fall into your lap, or they can't be bought in the market. They are built. And today, while there are different kinds of relationships, which we shall look at over the next few episodes, as I said, there are relationships with friends, or friendships, as they're often called. There are relationships with the family. There are relationships with your spouse. There are relationships at work. Okay. And there's so many other kinds of relationships. Okay. But we are going to look at some of these relationships in a little more specific way starting from the next episode. But in today's episode, what I intend to talk about is relationships in general. What are the essential things that one needs to do, one needs to be aware of, and what one needs to make sure that they do those things to build a healthy and a great, long-lasting relationship. So there are certain values which you need to imbibe and practice when you are getting into a relationship. The first value, according to me, is trust. If I do not trust anybody, how can I possibly imagine having a relationship with that person? So trust is primary, I think. This is my opinion. There are other values which we'll look at, and you might have a different opinion on that. Yes, please let me know if you have a different opinion. Okay, so it is necessary that all the individuals in a relationship, as I said, there can be just two people in a relationship, there can be many more. Okay, to give you an example, a spousal relationship is generally two people. Okay, but a family relationship is more than the same. You're going to look at the parents, you're going to look at the siblings, going to look at your kids, you're going to look at an extended family. Okay, so the relationship can be between two or more people. And whenever you are in a relationship, as many people that are in the relationship, they should be able to trust each other. If it is not there, then that relationship, and even if there are, say, 5 of you all in a relationship and one person doesn't trust the other, the whole relationship could be in jeopardy. So it's necessary that each one of the persons in the relationship trusts each and every other person that is there. And this is necessary because it is trust that makes one feel safe and secure in that relationship. Well, if there's no trust, I do not know when I'm safe. I do not know if I'm secure. I do not know when the person I don't trust is going to do something that is detrimental for my progress or my well-being. The second core value, and this first 3 core values, I'm giving in a sequence of what is important to me, although that is not what I normally do. Okay. So as I was saying, the next core value that one needs in a relationship is honesty. If Honesty is a virtue, okay? And it's an essential virtue in anything you do in life, particularly in relationships. It's one of the core ingredients of a relationship. So if you are not honest with the other person, then how is that person going to trust you? So you come back to the first point of trust. So you need to be honest in your relationships. The third important part, and this is where I have seen so many, of course, I have seen and experienced a deficit in trust, which has spoiled relationships. I have seen a deficit of honesty, which has spoiled relationships. But the most relationships that I have seen being destroyed are due to the point that I'm raising now, which is about communication. Your communication should be transparent and with complete understanding of the other person's views. Don't jump to conclusions. I know even I tend to do it at times. It's an inevitable thing, but communication is important. And if you are not honest in your communication, if you tend to be untruthful when you are communicating, that relationship is headed for disaster. And whenever you're communicating, listen. Listen enough. Listen to that other person before you start talking. Listen more, talk less. Now we come, these are the three, as I said, these are my three primary values that I look at when I'm looking at relationships. Now I'll talk of the other things that are important because, and a lot of these things are coming from personal experience, okay? And the next point that I'm trying to make is don't be a control freak. In a relationship, you don't try to control the other person, okay? In fact, you should go and respect each other's freedom and each other's views. Two of us sitting together cannot have the same view either in politics or in finance or whatever else it is. Okay, so you must respect the other person's view. But you have to be honest. You have to be completely honest and you have to be sure that you give the other person the freedom, especially if that particular thing that you are talking about, that you are discussing, is relevant more to the other person than to you. Don't try to control that person. Respect differences. There will be differences. There will be differences between spouses. There will be differences between colleagues. There will be differences between friends. There will be differences between a father and a son or a father and a daughter. Long live the difference, as we always say. So differences will be there. But the key to a great relationship is to understand the differences and then compromise. Come halfway. It may not be halfway. Sometimes it might be 60, 40, whatever it is. But come to an understanding where each of y'all are saying, okay, this difference up to this level, I accept, and we shall continue our relationship in a healthy manner, remembering those constraints. The next core value that I will talk of is commitment. Very often I've seen that people get into relationships not because they're committed to the relationship, but because they just want something short term. I've been, well, I've been in such situations. I call that people using me. But yes, when they want a connection, when they want to contact somebody, they may not talk to me for this thing. They will not even follow through on the promises that they make when they're making me do those things for them. But there is no commitment to a relationship. Okay, that's what you call just being used. Don't use people. I mean, yes, if you're using them, then don't act as though you are making a relationship with them. Tell them upfront, I need this, boss, how will I do it? But then live up to your promises. Don't just promise something, get the work done, and then conveniently forget about it. Okay. Another thing that is important, and this I have learned the hard way, especially at work and at times even in my personal life, is learn how to say no, when to say no, and when to accept a no. That is very important. Very often we want to say no and we'll say it. May not be in the best of ways. But when somebody tells us no, we find it difficult to accept it. And that is not a good thing. Okay. So it's not necessary that everybody has to agree with everything they say. Absolutely. There will be differences. As I said, long live the difference. But accept the other person's view. Accept that he has a choice. And accept it, especially when those choices and those views do not match your views. That is when challenges crop up. And when you're discussing something, discuss it as a discussion and not as a fight. Always be ethical. This becomes a part of honesty, so to say, but always be ethical. Maintain equanimity. An upset mind, an uneven mind is always going to lead to a fissure, to a breakup of a relationship. And it can harm the relationship. So maintain equanimity. Keep cool, stay even, do things the right way. Okay. As with everything else, and I think we've said this before, burn the ego. Ego is a killer in every situation and in every relationship. There is nothing that can be sustained and be successful and a happy situation if there is ego involved. Okay. And remember that you are not always right. You may be partially right, you may be completely wrong. And of course, you can be completely right also. But do not get blinded by your thinking. Very often I have seen that because somebody thinks that in a particular way, they get blinded by it. And then anything that other person says, where you have a great relationships, where everything is fine, you tend to say, oh, that's not for me. And when you say that, when you don't say that also, okay, what is implied is that no matter what you had done for me, it doesn't matter. I am right, and this is the way. Why don't you just do what I say? It's not a great way to do it. Be accountable. I don't think I need to explain this. Do not indulge in power play. That's something along the lines of, well, respect the other person's freedom and views. But there are times when power play takes a different dimension altogether, especially at work. In fact, mainly at work, and that can break relationships. Practice forgiveness. Don't just say sorry, mean it. And if you tell somebody, okay, forgive me and I will not do this again, make sure that you don't do it again. So that's very important. Now, how does one go about building? As I said, relationships don't fall into your lap or they can't be bought in the market. You have to build them. So what are some of the things that one can do to build a healthy relationship? First thing is analyze yourself. You need to know your strengths. You need to know your weaknesses. You need to know your deficiencies and merits and be conscious about that when interacting with people. You know there are certain deficiencies. Make sure that you try to reduce those deficiencies when interacting with the other person. And whenever you're upset, when you're not feeling magnanimous, yeah, sit down and meditate for a few minutes. It helps. Take care of yourself, mental and physical. Because when you are taking good care of yourself, only then can the other person in the relationship feel secure that you will take good care of them also. And since they are built and not bought, put in the effort that is required. It requires a lot of effort. It requires a lot of understanding. It requires a lot of giving up. Okay? But You need to do that if you want to build a relationship. In a relationship, I have often done it, and it has worked out well for me, is to set and respect boundaries. There are people who have set boundaries with me. There are people who I have set boundaries with. Well, sometimes when a person sets a boundary, I have been upset. I have tried to contact that person so many times. I know that person may probably say, oh shit, why doesn't he just leave me alone? But by and large, I respect boundaries. And I set boundaries that are necessary and not just for the heck of it. And when you set boundaries, communicate to the other person that this is a boundary. It may be a new boundary. It may be because of something that has happened, but communicate and set the boundary and define it so the relationship then moves on with the boundary in mind. You will have differences with anybody with whom you're in a relationship. That is inevitable. But think and see the reality always. You may be blinded by some of your inherent weaknesses. It may not be a weakness that can be easily taken care of. And one of the first things that comes to mind is two particular political parties who, because of their weakness for their children, their parties stand destroyed today. I'm sure you know which are the two parties I'm talking of. I'm talking of the Shiv Sena and the NCP. The Shiv Sena wanted the young Thackeray, Aditya, to become the CM. Sharad Pawar wanted his daughter to be the leader of the party, and both the parties have gone for a toss. So especially when it comes to, and I have faced this, not in political sense, but in other situations where because I made a comment or a suggestion about something to do with that person's child, which was not appreciated, I've lost a good friend. I don't know what I can do about it, but yes, that's the way it is. So I have faced that personally also. And finally, the last thing I would like to say is to remember something in today's times. Today, the kind of society we are living in, everything needs to be big. You need a big house, you need a big car, and in the same way, you need a big circle of friends and connections, especially when it comes to online. I know people who are very proud to say that I have 5,000 friends online. My friend, how many friends do you have where you can go and say, boss, I need this, and you're sure that person will help you? Those are real friends. Okay. But as I said, in the case of relationships, it doesn't have to be big, especially your inner circle. Keep your inner circle small. I mean, I don't mean small means you have just one or two people. Have more. But keep your inner circle small. Big is not always the best. And make sure that that inner circle is very relevant to you. They should be the ones who can help you promote yourself. They should be the ones who will open up and show you opportunities for both life and career. They are the ones who will help you in your professional development. And all of these people in the inner circle should be people whom you admire, whom you respect, and who share your values and beliefs. You cannot have a person in your inner circle who does not share your values or whose values you don't agree with. And this happens very often, especially in today's world, where I think I've said it before, but a lot of people today tend to pray only at the altar of money. And then other values go for a toss. So you could well be having that challenge. Learn to say no when people want to connect to you just for the heck of it, if they do not meet the requirements that we just spoke of. And this is particularly true in the case of online. As I said, I have got people who are coming and proudly telling me that they have 5,000 friends on a Facebook or something. Doesn't matter to me. In fact, having a large circle of friends online does not mean you're popular or that you're an important person. In fact, for me, a lot of times, what this gives is the impression that you have no values by which you judge the other person and accept that person as a friend, and you have no selection criteria. In fact, I would go to the extent of saying that be ruthless when it comes to being selective about friends and circles. So this is the general talk on relationships. I will stop here today. In the next session, we will talk of relationships in family, in friends, with work people, with spouses. We'll take up 3 or 4 episodes of this kind. In the meantime, enjoy this. If you have any questions, and oh, by the way, I have sent out the list as requested by quite a few of you. It took me, what? It took me a good 3, 4 hours on Saturday to make sure that that list was sent to everybody. And I hope you have all received it. If by chance I have missed somebody, please do remind me and I will take it up. I have it ready now, so it can come to you immediately. Thank you. Have a great evening.